Russian airstrike on a maternity and children's hospital in the southeastern city of Mariupol. Ukraine's President Zelensky calling it an atrocity tonight, pleading once again for help in closing the skies over Ukraine. Tonight, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying establishing a no-fly zone in Ukraine risks pulling the U.S. and NATO into a direct war with Russia. And tonight, what the Pentagon is now saying about those Soviet-era fighter jets in Poland, President Zelensky had been asking for what he might get instead. All of this as those images come in of that maternity and children's hospital in the moments after the attack. The building partially collapsed, every window gone, cars on fire, the splinters of trees littering the ground. After the attack, a crying mother clutching her baby, a woman wrapped in a blanket, stunned by the strike. An injured woman who was pregnant rushed away on a stretcher, and a soldier helps to console a distraught young boy there on the scene. The massive crater where the bomb struck several stories deep. And it's not just in Mariupol. Our Ian panel inside a hospital in Kyiv today where they are now treating casualties around the clock, civilians being rushed in. And there are new concerns tonight over Chernobyl. Ukrainian officials say the Russians have now cut power to the nuclear site, and why authorities are telling ABC News tonight that this is a fragile situation at that plant. ABC senior foreign correspondent Ian Panel leading us off tonight from Kyiv.
Tonight, an horrific attack on a children's and maternity hospital in Mariupol, Ukraine. Verified video showing how powerful and devastating this airstrike was. Windows and walls blown out. President Zelensky tweeting videos from the site saying there were people, children under the wreckage, calling the attack an atrocity. Disturbing images show a pregnant woman as she was rescued from the rubble. Local officials aren't sure yet how many people may have been killed or wounded. The building had reportedly been largely empty. There was supposed to be a ceasefire in Mariupol today. Instead, Putin's warplanes hit a hospital for innocent children, mothers and medics. It was quickly condemned as almost certainly a war crime. City officials say over 1,200 people have been killed in the onslaught. And for the fifth straight day, an evacuation plan for Mariupol's 200,000 trapped citizens collapsed because of the fighting. No. But in other parts of the country, civilians raced to escape a half-dozen besieged cities. Temporary ceasefires opening up humanitarian corridors for evacuations. But the toll for civilians is unbearable. We visited a hospital in Kyiv today that is receiving some of the war wounded.
We just had a report that there's been a mass casualty event. We're seeing people being brought in. Possibly it was a humanitarian corridor that was hit. We're not entirely clear at the moment, but there's suddenly been a burst of activity. People running, getting their gowns on, getting their scrubs ready for more and more patients coming in here.
This trauma hospital has been treating civilian and military casualties since the Russian invasion began. The last 2 weeks seeing a significant rise in the number of patients with gunshot wounds and injuries from shrapnel. Dr. Oles Garashuk is a neurosurgeon here.
How typical is this of your days?
Pretty typical. It's almost, well, every day.
How hard has this last week been?
Well, probably the most difficult were first 3 days or even 2 days. Now we have just, how to move into our normal regime, which is actually not normal, but we are already used to that.
The casualties we saw today were all civilians, and for many of them, the agony of this war has ripped apart their lives. Ludmila Karpachova's hometown of Chernihiv was shelled 5 days ago. She was running for cover when she got hit with multiple shrapnel injuries. The hospital removing most of the shell fragments from her body, but there's still a piece lodged in her spine. When the bombing started, we began to run, she says. I thought there'd be less bombing. And then they began to bomb everything, the whole district. 60 miles north of the capital, there was renewed concern today over the Russian-occupied Chernobyl nuclear site. Ukrainian officials saying part of the facility was disconnected from the nation's power grid and warning there could be a radiation leak. But experts say the power cutoff isn't critical to safety at this time. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency telling ABC's Aaron Katersky today there is no immediate risk of a radiation leak, but they're watching closely.
It's a situation that is very fragile.
And tonight, the White House with a new warning saying we should all be on the lookout for Russia to possibly use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine or to create a false flag operation using them. In neighbouring Poland, 2 American Patriot missile batteries were now manned and being made operational, according to the Pentagon. As fears grow, this conflict could spread. Today, the US again rejecting a Polish plan to transfer its Soviet-era fighter jets to a US base in Germany and then onto the Ukrainian Air Force.
The intelligence community has assessed that the transfer of MiG-29s to Ukraine may be mistaken as escalatory and could result in a significant Russian reaction.
And today, in the middle of this war, the National Symphony Orchestra played the national anthem in the Maidan, site of the Revolution of Dignity in 2014. Once again, the world is hearing Ukraine's spirit of unity and defiance.
And Ian Panel with us live again tonight from the capital of Kyiv. And Ian, as you know, President Zelensky earlier this week telling us he needed those fighter jets, those Soviet-era fighter jets inside Poland. We reported last night here that Poland suddenly said he can have those jets, that they would take them to a U.S. airbase in Germany. Of course, the Pentagon saying that was a no-go because of fears of an escalation here between the U.S. and Russia. But tonight, the Pentagon signaling there might be other military options that might be of better help to the Ukrainians.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, John Kirby's saying there are alternative options, looking at additional air defences, surface-to-air weapons, but they're also being very clear they do not believe in this no-fly zone because, of course, that could potentially put US forces engaged directly against Russian troops. David?
Ian Panel leading us off from Kyiv here again tonight. Ian, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.